Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Fundamentals of Fitness. I'm Alison, performance coach, personal trainer, and founder of AB Performance Training and Coaching. This is the podcast where we strip away the noise, extremes, and surface level advice and return to the science-backed fundamentals that build strength, resilience, and long-term performance. Because training isn't just about pushing harder, it's about understanding your body. Today, we're going to talk about something that almost everyone who trains will experience at some point: pain, or at least discomfort. And one of the biggest challenges in training is learning the difference between discomfort that is part of the progress and pain that signals a real injury. Because if you avoid every uncomfortable sensation, progress becomes impossible. But if you ignore genuine injury signals, you can make things much worse. So how do you tell the difference? And how do athletes train intelligently through discomfort without constantly getting injured? That's what we're going to explore today. So pop on those trainers or grab that cuppa and let's dive right in. One of the biggest misconceptions about exercise is the idea that training should always feel comfortable. That if something feels difficult, or if muscles start to burn, or if breathing becomes heavy, something must be wrong. But the truth is that physiological adaptation almost always involves some level of discomfort, because your body only changes when it is asked to do something slightly beyond what it's currently prepared for. When you challenge your muscles with resistance training, muscle fibers experience microscopic stress. When you challenge your cardiovascular system, your heart rate rises and breathing becomes more demanding. When you perform a new movement pattern, your nervous system works harder to coordinate the muscles involved. All of these sensations can feel uncomfortable, but they are not signs of damage. These are signs that your body is being challenged, and challenge is exactly what drives adaptation. The important thing to understand is that discomfort during exercise is not the same as injury. In fact, many of the sensations people worry about are simple, normal, physiological responses to effort. For example, that burning sensation in your muscles during a hard set of squats or lunges is caused by the accumulation of metabolic byproducts during muscle contraction. It's temporary. It fades quickly once the set finishes. And it's one of the signals that muscles are working hard enough to stimulate adaptation. Similarly, heavy breathing during cardio is not a sign that something is wrong. It simply means that your body is demanding more oxygen to support energy production. These responses are part of the body doing its job. Strength athletes experience these sensations constantly. During a heavy training session, muscles fatigue, bar speed slows, effort increases. But athletes understand that this discomfort is part of productive training. In fact, many strength programs are designed specifically to bring the athlete close to muscular fatigue, because that's where the stimulus for strength and muscle growth is strongest. But the key word here is controlled fatigue, not uncontrolled pain. I once had a client who stopped doing leg exercises because squats made their thighs burn. They assumed that burning meant something was wrong. But the burning sensation is simply muscular fatigue. And once we talked about what that feeling actually meant, their confidence improved. They were able to train harder and eventually saw much better progress because they understood the difference between discomfort and pain. So what does this mean for you? If your workouts feel challenging and if your muscles fatigue, if your breathing increases, these sensations are not necessarily signs of failure. They're signs that your body is being asked to adapt. And adaptation always requires a small amount of stress. While discomfort is a normal part of training, injury usually presents very differently. And learning to recognize the difference is one of the most valuable skills any athlete or any everyday trainee can develop, because ignoring genuine injury signals can extend recovery time dramatically. Injury pain tends to be more specific and persistent than normal training discomfort. Where muscular fatigue feels general and temporary, injury pain often feels sharp, localized, and unusual. Some common warning signs can include sudden sharp pain during a movement, joint instability or weakness, swelling or inflammation, pain that worsens rather than improves, discomfort that continues long after training has finished. These signals are different from the normal sensations of fatigue. They are the body telling you that something may need attention. Athletes and professional coaches pay close attention to these signals because catching small problems early often prevents much larger problems later. If a runner begins to feel persistent knee pain, for example, a coach might reduce running volume temporarily while addressing strength and mobility. The athlete doesn't stop training entirely, but the stimulus changes. The goal is always to protect long-term performance. Training intelligence involves recognizing when to push and when to adjust. Not every sensation requires stopping, but persistent or unusual pain deserves attention because long-term progress depends on protecting your body. One of the most fascinating aspects of pain is that it's not always directly linked to the tissue damage. Pain is a signal created by the nervous system, and the nervous system considers many factors before producing that signal. Fatigue, stress, sleep quality, previous injuries, emotional state. All of these can influence how sensitive the nervous system becomes. This means that two people can perform exactly the same exercises and experience very different levels of discomfort. Not because their bodies are fundamentally different, but because their nervous system are interpreting the stimulus differently. When the nervous system perceives potential threat, it can increase sensitivity in certain areas. This is a protective mechanism. It encourages caution while tissues recover. But sometimes this sensitivity remains even after the original signal has resolved. This means that discomfort can persist even when no structural injury exists. This is one of the reasons why gradual return to movement is often more effective than a complete rest. Movement reassures the nervous system that the area is safe again. Athletes often experience increased soreness or sensitivity during intense training blocks. Not because they're injured, but because fatigue can accumulate. The nervous system becomes more protective, reducing training intensity slightly, improving recovery, and maintaining movement quality usually resolves the issue. So what does this mean for you then? Not every ache or soreness means something is wrong. Sometimes it simply reflects fatigue or nervous system sensitivity. Understanding this helps people avoid unnecessary fear of movement, and maintaining movement is often one of the best ways to support recovery. So if discomfort is sometimes normal and injury requires caution, how do you train intelligently when something doesn't feel quite right? The key principle is adjustment rather than abandonment. Athletes rarely stop training completely unless injury absolutely requires it. Instead, they'll modify the training stimulus. This might involve reducing the load slightly, adjusting the range of motion, changing the exercise variation, or focusing more on technique and control. These adjustments allow the body to continue adapting while protecting vulnerable tissues. In professional sport, this approach is called load management. Training loads are adjusted continuously based on fatigue, soreness, and performance. The goal is to maintain progress while minimizing injury risk, because missing months of training due to injury is far more disruptive than adjusting one session. One of my clients once experienced knee discomfort doing lunges. Rather than removing leg training entirely, we adjusted the exercise selection. We introduced step-ups and controlled squats instead. These variations reduced the stress on the knee while still strengthening the surrounding muscles. Within weeks, the discomfort had improved and the client maintained training consistency. The most successful trainings think long term. They recognize that progress happens over months and years, not individual workouts. Adjusting a session to protect your body is not a weakness, it's intelligent training, because the goal is to not win a single workout. It's to continue training consistently for years. If something feels uncomfortable during training, ask yourself a few questions. Is this sensation muscular fatigue? Does it improve with warm-up? Does it disappear after the set? Or does it feel sharp, unstable, or persistent? Learning to interpret these signals is one of the most valuable skills you can develop as a trainee. Training always involves listening to your body, but listening doesn't mean reacting emotionally to every sensation. It means learning to interpret the signals intelligently. Discomfort can be part of progress, and injury requires respect and adjustment. Understanding the difference is one of the most valuable skills any athlete or everyday person can develop. Thank you for being here with me again this week, and thank you so much for trusting me with your time. If this episode has helped you understand how to train more intelligently, share it with someone who's unsure whether they should push through discomfort or stop completely. And if you're building long-term strength, health, and performance, make sure you're following the fundamentals of fitness so you don't miss what's coming next. Next time, we're going to explore body composition versus body weight, and why what changes inside your body often happens long before the scale will reflect it. Until then, train with structure, recover with intention, and build something that lasts. I'll see you next week.